£100,000 from somebody if you'd have actually handed that to them and said, that justifies why I want the money. I'm sure that that would be a very difficult pill to swallow. I get that you're all excited and I get that you're all enthusiastic, and so are we. We are volunteers as well. But I just feel that there's got to be some clarity and there's got to be some transparency. We are going to have to know, or personally myself, I'm going to have to know an awful lot more than pie in the sky figures.
They're not pie in the sky, they're actual figures.
They're not justified. They've not been assessed by anybody that have been to us, you know, and this is not a business plan. The viability report is not a business plan. And I can remember the last time we had a meeting with John, but it was something, I even offered you my services as a financial director and said, call me. If you want some help, I'm here as a volunteer. I belong to this group, but I can also help you because you're our village people of Brent Knoll.
Yep.
It's still, in my mind, it's still just held together with a small amount of glue.
Well, what would you like to know? Because the figures are most, apart from the forecasts, they're all actual figures. So, as you will know, if you've done business plans, forecasting is almost like that. You know, we've been very, very conservative. We don't have any debt, so the opposite side of that, the balance sheet, is cash. So we did give a business plan to the subcommittee. It was...
Jonathan, don't lose sight of this. I'm not poo-pooing anything, okay? I really am not. It's a fantastic idea and it's a wonderful project, but you're asking us to go and borrow £100,000.
Sure.
And that is the decision that we have got to make.
Absolutely.
And we have got to think, is this a 25-year project for us? Is it going to be something that's going to be viable in 25 years? Are we going to see that rent coming in for 25 years? Are we all going to be here in 25 years?
Sure.
There's a big thing, and it's not just, you know, that we've done great for a year. This has got to be something that is going to last the lifetime of the debt. We've seen a shop in our village fall foul, and for a local person to actually not be able to have a business of her own, and that's why she shut the shop. And it was great, you know, because of the circumstances that we've been able, you know, you've been able to do this. But the question for us is that can we justify on behalf of the village £100,000 to make a bill?
The previous owners of the shop were making a living from it, weren't they?
Yes.
And we're not making a living, we're using volunteers and
but
possibly
a
part-time manager.
You know, she really struggled and decided that she could go and earn a better wage or have a better lifestyle and not
yes,
have to...
I think that's the conclusion.
If I jump in again, when I go into that shop there, I feel welcome. When I went to that shop there, I never felt welcomed, and I just think that if you've got somebody there who is brilliant and someone's not brilliant, you're going to go there, aren't you?
Yes, totally agree. And the stock that we've got there here is totally different to what Caroline, totally different. Caroline's stock is all out of date.
I'm still not arguing that.
But let me just jump in again. I thought we sent through a 120-page business plan.
Yeah.
Let me know if you remember that wasn't a business plan. There was a lot of history about Brent Knoll wrapped up in that. A business plan, I think that Andy was talking about, is the forecasting and the structure behind the business. Would you like to expand on that a little further?
Okay, so with any business, if you were to actually write down what your idea is and how you're going to manifest this idea and what are the good bits, what are the bad bits, I saw the pros and the cons. What are the attributes, what are the threats, you know, what could close you down, what could, you know, make it better. I look at the figures, you know, and you can see that there's justification that you are moving on. However, we're in a changing world and that we probably are not going to be in a pandemic forever. And will there be this need? And my fear is that the whole of this village will have a 25-year debt for something that might not have a 25-year life. That's all I'm saying.
But I think the pandemic, within reason, is here for many years yet.
And we'll live
many
with
years.
that.
And I don't want it to be, don't get me wrong, but I think so. But the shop there, I mean, people are just using it now. Like in the olden days, when you didn't go to the supermarket, you just went there for what you needed. But on that sort of financial statement, then, what do you want then? Because, I mean, we want to help.
Can I just come back? We're part of the Plunkett Foundation, isn't it?
Yeah, Plunkett.
Which is like an association for community shops. There are hundreds of, if not thousands, of successful shops around the country. This is not just a new thing that's happening here. There are some very, very successful ones that are running. You know, can we guarantee that we'll be here in 25 years? No more than anyone can. But the figures that we have are showing that more and more people are using the shop. If we can get a bigger footprint, we can carry more stock, therefore we can get our overhead, our costs down by buying in bulk.
More storage.
And we have more storage. You know, the post office itself will bring in a fair bit of money, as well as my Hermes. So I do take exception to things, not pie in the sky sort of figures. You know, these are genuine. We've been very conservative. You know, I could quite happily have gone and say we'll double the turnover because we can open twice as long. And in reality, I've got clients who have a smaller footprint than what we can have, who have a shop up in the valleys in Cardiff, and they're making more than that, and they're living off of it. Now, none of us are taking anything from this, so we don't need to make a profit. As long as we pay our rent and pay our bills, you know, the fact that we have £1 at the end of the day, it means we're still viable in that sense. We don't want to do that. We want to overachieve, because our end goal is that once we start to amass cash behind us and we're in a really comfortable position, is that we can then start, for example, sorry, I don't know your name. Steve. We could go to Steve and say, look, we've got some funds for the community, here, have some funds from us. Or we can go to the Girl Guides and say, look, you know, you want to go on a camping trip, here's some money. So this is a community shop, and the whole point is to raise money within the shop. We don't want to sit on it because there's no point. You know, we've got to spend it, and by doing that, we'll be reinvesting back into the community. So it's not your comparison to the existing shop that was there. I moved here back in November last year, 2020 now. Sorry, and all I've known is the community shop, and my wife recommended I join and help out, and here I am today. You know, she got to last time. She's at home with the kids having a nice time. From my point, it's been a real great way for me to come into the village and meet people and get stuck in.
What I'm saying is this: out of all of those community shops with the Plunkett Trust, how many of them went to their parish council and asked them to loan £100,000? That would be interesting to know.
Yes, that is.
And how has that fared? Because there are going to be there are going to be places that have borrowed a lot of money and it has failed. So it would be an interesting piece of information to bring to us and say, you know, out of 250, there was a percentage of 4 or 10 or whatever, but they, you know, were successful or they weren't successful, because we don't know. We just see £100,000 debt.
Sure.
Andy?
Lucy, yes.
Of the, it's over 400 shops now that the Plunkett Foundation are assisting and developing in the country. They have a 96% success rate, which in this day and age I think is excellent for any business.
Successful rate of what?
Well, still going, making a profit.
Over how long?
I don't know how many years, I haven't seen their books, but it's clearly on the Plunkett Foundation website.
So again, that would be quite interesting to know, the 96% successful rate of what? That, yeah, again, you know...
Of profit, of kept going, have succeeded
And whether
in their
the store.
business.
Okay.
And there are hundreds in the country, and it's accessible information on the Plunkett Foundation website.
Okay.
They've been very helpful, very
Lovely.
successful.
So that would be something I could access myself.
Yes, anybody can.
Website.
Again, I
Anybody
didn't know
can.
this information.
London
And again,
Foundation.
you know, the more information that you have, the more you can make a...
Would you prefer Jonathan then to have made the figures more exciting then, as opposed to being more cautious?
Trust me, finance is not exciting. I do it every day, it's not exciting.
I'm an accountant, so trust me, I know.
I'm a financial director, joined in them. So yeah, it doesn't need to be exciting, it needs to be genuine. And I just, you know, maybe we think I ask some awkward questions, but if they want to...
we
No,
appreciate
absolutely.
that.
We've got nothing to hide. All our cards are on the table here. You know, is there anything specific that you're not happy about?
I think that I will leave that for the
Fine, that's fine.
for the discussion that
Sure.
we have here.
Okay, any questions? Any more questions for the shop committee? No? Okay, we're going to officially start council meeting. So if I can now ask that our visitors will be more than welcome to stay, but this now becomes an in-committee meeting. And if I could ask you to refrain from making any comment. If there's something very burning, you raise your hand. I'll see if we can get to you. Thank you very much for your attendance today. Thank you very much for your presentation.
And thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I know for some of you it's been very hard to stand up, so we appreciate that. Thank
Watching them talk.
Oh, not a swap.
Get ready for you.
Okay, councillor, we're now in session. Okay, councillors, I'll read you this from our chairman and we'll go into the debates and conversations. So, councillors, you have now heard from members of the shop committee and you have had the opportunity to place before them your questions. Hopefully, you have received the information that you require to enable you to make the discussion and decision. In summary, the initial emergency shop facility has now formalised its structure and is now classified as Brent Knoll Community Shop Limited. The shop has subscribed shareholders who have elected a management structure which controls its activities. The shop is managed on a day-to-day basis by a team of active volunteers managed by UCY. The financial terms of the shop is showing that they are targeting a 20% gross margin. Accounts to date are demonstrating that this figure is becoming continually monitored. Accounts show profit for the period 31st of January 2021 of 14,133. Accounts profit for the period of 31st of January 2022 are projected to be 6,488. Please note that £3,455 has been spent on moving the shop to new premises and new fridges and capitalisations. Cash balances are healthy, showing that they have approximately £12,000 in the current account and £6,600 held in the shareholders' fund, which I think we heard tonight is 100% their shareholder fund, which is capable of being used for any investment into the new proposed built building. The registration for VAT will give an opportunity for them to itemise in further detail how the stock moves and enable the shop committee to address the stock and demand accordingly. And there's a comment in there that a lot of it is done on a day-to-day basis because of lack of systems. As they have to come into registering their stock and paying VAT, they are forced into our data process and their systems. The shop committee have demonstrated that they have actively promoted the shop through various social networks and that they are available. Ultimately, it is the responsibility of the shop committee and not the parish council to ensure the continued success of the shop. The shop is providing an important community benefit and will only succeed with the support of the community that it currently represents. The PC will have a secured tenant with the protection that would be afforded under the proper tenancy agreement. We now are at the point where we need to proceed to our resolutions. Neither of these resolutions constitute as a final decision on the project. This can only be taken by the council once the final costing has been considered and agreed by council members. However, if the council do not approve resolution 1, and I'll explain that one in a minute, then we need to give some reasons why it does not meet the condition 4 in the agreement we have with the shop. What actions the shop management committee needs to take to bring the matter before the council on a future occasion. It would also mean that resolution 2 is unlikely to succeed in this current meeting. So resolution 1 that we will be considering and discussing this evening. Is it agreed the viability plan has been an acceptable document to fulfil condition 4 of the 5 conditions set back in July? This will require a majority decision from the council. Condition 4 was a sustainable and viable business plan provided by the shop management committee, which demonstrates a clear evidence of current trading and a plan for going forward in both short and medium term. Do any councillors want me to go through those 2 points, the resolution and the point 4? No? The second resolution that we will do, and we are breaking it into 2 separate points, assumes that approval from resolution 1 is met by the council and agreed to move forward to the next stage as architect's drawings and tenders and quotes are needed. This will probably incur cost to the council, which is why the council have to be, resolution 2 comes after resolution 1. What I will do now, with that in our minds, and clearly what we're here to discuss is resolution 1, is to agree the viability plan is being an acceptable document to fulfil condition 4 as set back by this council in July. So I now open it to the floor for any comments, debates before we take this to resolution vote. Does anybody want to say anything? Andrea?
Yeah, I do.
Please do.
So, personally, I'm disappointed that 6 months down the line, the only document we have now to consider is just the 4 pages here that we've got. I don't think that a viability plan is an acceptable document. We clearly asked for a business plan. Business plans, you can go on the internet and see how to write them. There is an awful lot of input because there are an awful lot of people at all levels of life, from sole traders right up to PLCs. They all have new business ideas. So these aren't beyond the capabilities of anybody to actually produce. I still go back to the fact that if you went to a bank manager to ask for £100,000, that this would actually substantiate your evidence to say this is what's going to make it work. I'm not people in the what it is and how it functions and how it is in the community and the help and the beneficialness, for lonely people. Don't get me wrong, I think it is amazing. But it's amazing it can be run from a porta cabin, it can be run from another building in the village. I just feel very, very uncomfortable that I don't have all the tools that I need for me to say that I can tick box 1 to say that this is an acceptable document.
Okay, just sort of in defence of that document there and the comment made by the floor earlier this evening, the multi-page document was a repeat and replica of what was written by the first document, which we rejected as being a business plan. Okay, so then
circulated that, so you clearly felt
that was the same one we all saw right
in the first place,
and it was dressed up a bit, but it was basically the same document.
Yeah.
So what you're asking for is a more detailed plan
The thing is that if you were given a list of what you needed to provide for another section of people to actually say, yeah, we're going to go with this, in 6 months, there's certainly been enough time that we've asked for this document and it hasn't been produced. And then if we back to 18 months when the shop actually started, I'm sure that somebody somewhere should have sat down and said, you know, shall we do this? If we are, let's have a, you know, let's just work it out on what can we achieve and what can we do. Get volunteers, share shares, sell shares. So all of that has been there, but somebody needed to write it. Somebody needed to actually provide that, and it needed to be transparent and honest. Because I feel, you know, there's an awful lot of us that want this to work, me included, but it's got to work for the next 25 years. And that's a long time.
Okay. Points well made, thank you. Any other? Bob?
Take a slightly different view, I must admit, now. I think my feeling with this is we have seen over the last 12-18 months the shop operate. We've now got the figures in front of us and we've seen how they've operated out of what was the temporary building and now the one that planning commission for. In terms of the viability, it's very difficult for any of us to know what's going to happen over the next 10, 15, 20 years. The shop can make up whatever figures they want to. That isn't going to sell it to me. What sells it to me is how does it operate? What is it generating at the moment? What are the prospects in the short, medium term? We have seen some estimations. We know that the shop is trading positively at the moment on a limited hours of operation. Having, as many of you will know, I've been involved with the previous shop, helping out over a number of years. The turnover that they're having at the moment is actually less than that shop was having before, even when it wasn't viable, mainly because its overheads were massive compared to what they're having to deal with. And so that's where my confidence on their viability comes, because I know what they put in their paper at the moment is certainly achievable based on what the previous shop was doing in turnover. And they have advantages the other shopkeeper never had. So I think that helps us. If we're looking at this purely as a financial transaction, that is one way of looking at it. We also have to look at it on the balance of the community value as well. And what the community shop brings to that, I think, is huge. We have heard the plans as to how they want to expand that, and I think there are grounds for understanding why that would work. We've seen clear commitment from them in terms of the efforts and commitment that their volunteers are putting in and their committee in making sure this thing has got to the stage which it currently is. We're in a staged process here anyway, in that before we get the ability to even move ahead on the building of a permanent structure, we need to go through a lot of things to do with architects, planning, quotes, find out financially whether that's something we can manage as a council. And we can't start that process until we are beyond this next stage we're looking at today, viability. And that's what I think what they put in front of us, for me, satisfies me that it shows that there is viability there. In terms of if it does fall over in 15, 20 years' time, we as a parish haven't lost the money that we put up. We own an asset which would have then been built, which at that point we have to make use of, and either it's something that becomes a community asset or we can rent it out for something else, which helps offset any costs. We've seen from the proposals that have been put forward of the rental income compared with our cost of loans, that after something like 12 or 13 years we're basically at break even or more. So at that point there is no net cost to the parish over and above what we've already put in.
But that does mean we make a financial contribution of £12,000.
Absolutely. But that is exactly. But that is whether we think that is a community benefit that we can put in, and certainly something that we're entitled to do. And as members, I think, have circulated the notes that the research put around, I think, by Grant Shapps a couple of years ago about the role and responsibility of parishes in supporting community projects of this nature, be it shops or pubs or whatever. So I think there are grounds that we can look at this as a positive way forward. I think at some point this council needs to make a decision to move ahead. We can always, I think, come up with other hurdles that we might wish to put forward and we can prevaricate. I think we've got enough information in front of us at this stage that we can make that decision to say, move to the next stage and see where we go from there. And so I would be happy to move the first proposal.
Thank you, Bob. So, any views, comments, questions? No?
Alvin, from my side, I listened to both arguments here. I think from the community, from the community shop committee, there's a true passion and commitment that's stated there. But I do agree with Andrea that it is a huge commitment from this parish council to make a decision that's going to sort of like last over 25 years. But as we've said here, this is to the next step. Are we happy that that resolution has met section 4, which was about having a sustainable business plan? I'm hearing from this side over here that it's not a business plan. It's a viability plan. I'm struggling to understand what the difference is here. So I'm still sitting on the fence with this.
I can tell you what difference is actually in Nigel.
Okay, please.
A business plan is a commercial document based on commercial success or failure.
Okay.
This is a viability plan, which simply says, is it viable for local community support? Is it viable enough? Doesn't have to produce commercial profitability.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, it has
So
no
what
commercial
was
share.
requested to get us through resolution 1?
I
Sustainable business plan.
A sustainable business plan, and business plan is not necessarily, so I'll contradict from that. It's not necessarily a business plan. I think what Andrew's talking about is what we tend to see in business is a lot of market forecasting, growth, population growth, and a lot of detail that goes into it. Says the village is going to double in size, therefore if we're 130 current household users, then you'll be 260, etc. So I think that's the type of business modelling that I think some councils are looking for, an explanation of where this is going to go. I think what Bob is saying is, you know, and quite rightly saying, is guys, we're not actually making a decision tonight whether to go or no go. What we're making a decision on is, are we prepared to see how much this is really going to cost us? Because we're going to take an £18,000 plan, plus any other expenses that go into it is going to have to come out of our contributions, which puts at risk any other projects that we're doing. Plus we're settling whatever, and we've got elections coming up in May, so whoever sits in these seats after us is going to have to pick up what we leave them. But what we're asking, and that's in all the councils, what we're asking in resolution 1 is, do we think we have enough information in front of us to go and see how much this is going to cost us? Bob, have I got that wrong or correct? And then at that stage, there's got to be a huge debate and more input, I think, from the committee, from the shop committee, into a more substantial business plan, which we will have to put from the government anyway, to say that this is a viable loan. So we will have to do more work with the shop committee. I think that's where we are. So resolution 1, if anybody disagrees, is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I don't want to get into this up here, but in terms of the resolution 1, I think if we pass the resolution 1, we are saying we are accepting figures, we're happy with that with viability and that we can move ahead. At that point, that resolution has been dealt with. We don't need to go back with further business plans in the future. We will still need to give evidence to the government when we're doing the loans, but we're not coming back to this council again to go through the whole debate we're having tonight.
No, and if I gave that impression, that's not what I meant.
When we applied for the approval, as you know, it was a very comprehensive set of figures I had to produce for you. And those figures were what were accepted by the Community Secretary as acceptable figures to allow us to go forward alone. So even though I didn't have the information that we've got now, I was able to make enough of the figures that we did have to say to the Community Secretary that actually we want to go for a loan on this, and as far as we're concerned, this is information, and they have accepted that. What they haven't accepted, of course, is the PWLB might have some different questions, and may want some more detailed questions when it comes down to the actual final decision.
And that's
a bit I can't say whether you
that's
accept that or
a
not.
bit where we're going to have to work with the committee to figure out what is, and build a better, stronger business plan if it's necessary. Also, when we've got the costs in front of us, 80 grand might not be enough. In which case, again, we've got a conversation to say this is all we can raise. And if it's not sufficient to cover, then we're going to have to sit down and rethink this again with the monies that we have available. So I think it is fair to say, and I'll try and be clear this time, Resolution 1 is about, do we go get, have we got sufficient data that we think that this, we call it a business plan, it is a sufficient business plan, if not the business plan, to go forward and start incurring costs by looking into the true cost of what we're about to get into. And then, so that's Resolution 1. Anybody else?
Like in the proposal, have we got a second for that?
I would propose that I don't agree that the viability plan is an acceptable document and it doesn't satisfy condition work.
Okay.
So let's go from the first proposal.
Just a second. That's fine. That is a direct negative, so it would just be that someone votes against the proposal, in fact.
Yes.
You're voting against it
Yes.
on that basis, rather than making a separate proposal.
So Bob has ventured forward, it's been seconded by Nigel. Can we take a vote on whether we believe the Resolution 1 can go forward has been met?
Four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5.
So, okay, so that's to say that Resolution 1 has been met.
No.
Anybody
Against.
vote against?
So against.
Anybody voting against Resolution 1? 2.
You abstained, right?
Yeah, I'm abstaining.
You're
Because I
abstaining.
think that's
Two.
something.
One abstention.
No, but
Who's voting?
There's not enough data, so I'm going to have to go again.
Right, so it's 3. That's 3. So that resolution is accepted.
Okay.
In that case.
Resolution 2
So resolution 2
is,
considering agreeing next stage project.
do we wish, so resolution assumes an approval of Resolution 1 and the Council agreeing to move forward to the next stage of architect's drawings together with tenders and quotes for the project. So is anybody going to say, can somebody
Someone has proposed that.
propose that?
It's the natural progression. Until we get those figures, we really don't know where we are with this. And I think it needs to set, there will be a number of stages here we're going to have to work out, architects and agents to talk to in terms of planning applications, all that sort of stuff. Those sort of plans are going to need to be drawn up. Unless we pass this resolution, we can't even start on that. So that at least allows us to start looking at that process. So happy to move it.
Anybody want to second that? Okay, so taking a vote on Resolution 2. 4. Okay.
Against? Against?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, against. so.
So
For the
for
purpose
that
of this
section,
meeting, that concludes it.
that
That
concludes
concludes the
the
second meeting, because obviously we need to now go back as a working group, because the other thing you need to say is, are you happy for the working group to continue the work that they're currently doing in terms of taking it to this next stage? Is that something you wish to continue, basically? Because we need to propose that actually, that the working group are acceptable to the council.
If you need to propose one, then propose that.
Proposal. That's Andy,
Just remind me of the work.
the work group is Paul, Andy,
College.
College, and I'm actually a purely coordinator, so I'm not actually part of the voting.
There is a question I'd like to pose forward to Andrea. Would you like to join the working team on that? Seriously? No. Okay.
I think I would have
Early.
a year ago, yeah, but not now.
I know that. I asked a year ago as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got a proposal that the working group as it is now
Just before we
continues.
close down this section, though, what I would like to do is just pass a comment for record. A number of councillors have, yes please, a number of councillors have received direct contact from individuals from the shopping committee, and they've spoken to me, and I'm not going to use the word harassment because it's not that severe, but it certainly is very personable. And there is a restriction in people's views in here to be expressed, because there is concern that they will be ridiculed in public press by individuals. And I think that needs to be limited, because if and when it does happen, the council needs to be taking action against it.
I'd also like to add to that is that we too are also a group of volunteers that have come together for the good of the village, often without very much training, and we've supported one another and we've moved forward together for many, many years. And I feel under pressure personally about pushing my head above the pulpit and saying the things that I'm saying, and maybe it's something that we do think and we're not brave enough to say, and like Andy's just said, you know, I don't want to be named and shamed in an editorial or emails or local people talking. You know, all I want to do is to actually explore the viability and for us all to make the right decision together. It's nothing personal, I'm just here to represent a group of people.
Okay. Bob?
If I could just comment, I think it is perfectly right that people shouldn't vilify the decisions they make in the council. We've all, at times, been on the end of that, and I think we have to also bear in mind that we are elected public officials, and so we do have a profile. People will bend your ear when you're in the village, they will collar you. That is part of the role. They should not do it in an abusive or an aggressive way, but part of the role of being a councillor is being accountable to our electorate, and so that will be something we all have to do. As I say, people should not do that in such a way that it gets abusive or rude. We've all suffered from that at times on certain decisions, and we've come under quite severe pressure at times. So it's something we all have to live with as part of our role as a councillor, but there are bounds beyond which we shouldn't go. And I think we all understand that, but we are accountable, we have to be open and accessible.
And we do. And I don't think, as long as it's reasonable and fair, then everybody's absolutely fine. Everybody's allowed to agree. My concern is what it does do is stops the debate. John?
Sorry, did you say that someone on the shop committee had sent emails? Is that what you said? Right, can I just categorically say they don't speak for me? I'm sure they don't speak for anyone else.
And you know they don't speak for me.
So,
And if it's what I'm thinking, I did have discussions this evening, but nothing comes from people here.
No, not at all.
And over to Andrea. Andrea, I do appreciate healthy debate. No problem whatsoever. Your comments are taken on board. And Jonathan, myself and the committee will literally...
There is no malice, there is no, I'm trying to undermine you or I'm trying to trip you up or make it difficult. Just feel that we need to be open and we all need to explore this together. Because
everything has been given us in the past, we've taken on board.
Yeah.
It takes us some time to get it there. But yeah, your comments will be taken and we'll get together.
Gentlemen, ladies, if we can bring the meeting back in. Thank you very much for your contributions. I'll close this part of the meeting and come back to you, Jamie.
Thank you. We now move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is planning.
Well, if you don't mind, we'll leave now, but thank you very much for your input. And as I said, if you're Man United or you're Man City, you're never going to sort of agree on everything, but you're friends at the end of it. Thanks for your input.
I believe you're going to present this, Andrea.
I am. So this is Orchard View. It is 0721 00023. Erection of a 2-storey rear, north-west and first floor extension, including raising of the ridge height and demolition of an existing rear, north-west facing hot tub extension. So we unanimously supported this on the 2nd of the 12th, 21, as an improvement to the property and to increase living accommodation, and we were happy. However, since that time, there have been more plans have been submitted, and there has been justification for this to be revisited. So there are 2 local comments. They're not objections, they are comments. One is, as long as there are no windows overlooking our property, we have no objection, which is from the neighbour on the right-hand side. And then from a neighbour across the road, he believes that documents of this application may be in error insofar as those shown as existing do not reflect the current layout. Currently, the majority of the roof is an unobtrusive flat structure. I also note that the applicant wishes to raise the ridge line, however, no dimensions are shown to judge what the finished height would be. So, I know we haven't got a screen today, so Orchard View is this one here. And this is what it looks like at the moment, so there's no tip on this. And that's what they're proposing, is that it will be a pitched roof. And the height at the moment, if you use, and it's correct, the scale, then it's 5 metres at the moment and it will be increased to 6, so that's only a metre. Okay. Also, the northwest facing window is here. It is a ground floor window, and I would have thought that if you had fencing between you and the next door neighbour, that window wouldn't actually look into the neighbouring property. And then there's no windows on the second, or even a dormer window or anything protruding on the top to actually say that privacy was being compromised. This is the back view with all the glass in. That's the back view and that's the front view. That is what we have to look at, is about the height of that ridge and whether or not the proposed window is an intrusion on the neighbour.
Does anyone have any questions? And what is your considered opinion, Andrea?
Well, this is front facing, so by having that a metre higher, I don't think is unreasonable to get away with the flat roof for all of us that know about flat roofs, they are notoriously difficult, yeah. And I do believe that by having a pitched roof would actually be far better for the owner. And then, like I said, the only difference from what is there to what they're proposing is just that window there. Now, we don't know, a window is no higher than 6 foot high, and if you're allowed to have a 6 foot fence, then I don't think that window will actually look over the next door neighbour's property.
And they filled in the gap between the dormer window and across.
Yeah.
Is that what the neighbour was complaining about, loss of sight and flat roof?
No, all they were saying was that they just didn't want any windows. It was just a comment. They didn't want any windows, so there was only one window. What the other neighbour was saying was that the drawings that were submitted back in November didn't actually have the measurements, and the roof is unobstructive and a flat structure. But now they want to raise the ridge line. He noticed that, and that they wanted to actually put it as a ridge, but there was no measurements for that. So the measurements have been calculated, and I would say if we go from a flat roof to a ridge roof, then the increase on front facing would be a metre.
That's in keeping with local practice.
Yeah, because there a lot of people are going away from flat roofs, because they are so difficult to maintain. It was something we approved, and both our comments, they're not objections, so there aren't any objections. Please.
Yeah, I'll
support
I
that.
have a proposal.
Propose to support.
Seconder.
And the key grounds we put into place of
Well, it's still an improvement to the property, as we previously stated, and the amendments, which was what has held this up, are not.
They're not compromising.
No. They are acceptable because.
Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay. The next planning application is Trevor 025. Who is taking that? Thank you, Andy.
Okay, the application, I've got diagrams here, is full planning permission. We've approved this in the past. It's the Laurels, Wick Lane, Brent Knoll Parish. The variations to condition 2 of the planning permission and came in to us as 00001 is change of use and conversion of the garage to workshop into a store and into a dwelling. Change of use of application to exclude the dormer windows and add solar panels. So we've already approved the change of usage from storage and garage to residential, and the new regulation is asking us if they can do away with the original plan, which was dormer windows. That's the Laurels, by the way. Anybody wants to see that? Can you see that? And what they're asking to do is to go much more, without the dormer windows, go into a much more flat type of structure, similar to neighbours of theirs. So I don't see a problem with dormer windows. We've approved it, and she wants, the owner wants to put up solar panels. There are no objections. There are 3 documents, including photographs, 4 plans, and going through the official. The owner's statement is to say to exclude dormer windows and add solar panels, and that's from Elaine Westwood. That's for ecological reasons, and there are no objections from any of the authorities.
Does anybody have any questions?
My recommendation would be to accept it.
Can I have a proposal?
accepting
Seconder?
and place choice.
No no substantial change to the original plan. Second document is 00027. These documents, this again is one we've approved for Mr. Jones, full planning permission. Land to the west of I said Viola. Is that Viola?
Voila.
Voila. Oh, that's voila. Voila. Okay, so it might be in a different country. Station Road, Brent Knoll Parish. Variations to condition 2 of planning permission again. Change of use of conversion to a semi-detached dwelling to amend approved drawings. And effectively, what they have done is moved it to a semi-detached. We've approved it before, and there's been a slight amendment to the overall plan. On the grounds that we've approved it in the first place, there's no substantial change to the originals. You can see there are no objections. There are 3 documents on planning, 4 documents in view of plans, 1 consultee. None of the authorities have any issues with this. I can see no reason why we would not pass it through.
Can I have a proposal? Can you second that? Show of hands. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
That's straightforward,
It's run away.
It's gone for that coffee.
It's gone to use the toilet. He's playing hide and seek.
Nice in action.
Oh,
That's where he went.
Yeah, I thought he went that way, yeah, certainly.
But he's chatting to somebody, isn't
He'll be outside unless they're out.
he? No.
Yeah. Oh, there's Rob. Yeah.
Here he is.
Where have you been?
It's like Mr. Ben.
Lurking in the
There
toilet.
we see him there.
Move on to item 6. Outstanding footpath matters. Andrea? Cynthia, I mean?
Oh, sorry, what did you say?
Footpaths.
Yes. I've brought this up before several times. It's about the gate, which has a very high step going across. I think it's the windows.
It's an ongoing problem, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Somebody spoke to me yesterday, and he said that he understands, obviously, it's very slippery and everything, but he said it's very difficult to get it over there when it's so, so wet. He said, in fact, he slipped towards the reed. Well, that's the problem, you see, and I've had a lot of people saying the same thing, that they find it difficult to get over because sometimes people are not tall, and also when you get on these farms, and it is so close to the reed there. But what he suggested was that really the gate should be put around the other end. And otherwise that the gate to get through should be at that end rather than that, because that's where the green is. But, I've had lots of people actually complain like that. And I said, well, obviously I passed it on to you all this time. I don't know what you're going to do. But I think his actually suggestion of telling the ground, getting the gate turned round, putting the actual gate away from the room. You see what I mean? No, it isn't. But it's at the other end of the gate, in other words, and that gate, when people get through, the little gate, that's where they're very close to the room. So that was a suggestion, so maybe they could turn that gate and make it much better. And what else was that?
We're not talking about the same one, are we? I'm talking about the one at Applewithy Green. The first one that you go to, it's behind my house, directly behind my house.
No, not
And
yeah, not
this
that
has
one.
got a huge drop there. And this fence going towards the ring is loose
Yeah.
and it's dangerous. And I've got 3 photographs of it. You see at least an over a foot drop. And it needs to be built up. And also the fence needs to be secured. And it's the first one you go to when you go down Ivy Body's Lane, turn right. It's the first one you come to. I mentioned this about the past 2 years. And nothing's been done about it. And I think it should be.
Well, and also that, you know, going across the horse field, where we've got that very narrow.
If I recall, I think Colin was going to meet up with this guy, Nichols, to see where that was in his because he's obviously quite capable of doing that work. I'm not sure what the outcome was, because I know we're going to meet up with him at some stage to just talk it through with him, both issues, I think. Which I don't know whether that has happened or not.
I don't know if it's happened.
So I'll make a note to ask Colin whether that did take place, and if it hasn't, perhaps we should set it up.
That's one. I also read another issue. Made a Christmas trip up the Knoll, and can we get in touch with the National Trust about their steps once you cross the, the bit approaching the National Trust land is bad. Once you get onto the National Trust land, some of the steps are okay, some of them are completely collapsed, and where you come down it's quite steep and it's really muddy and slippy, and particularly if we're going to be having peatlands and lots of people going up the Knoll for the celebration of Queen's Jubilee. They need to get something done with those steps because they are useful.
The problem we have with the National Trust is they just never come back to it. I mean, this I took up after the last meeting, and I managed to find somebody to speak to, but he said, I'll come back to you, and never heard another word. And, it's very difficult for people to come back.
They are liable, aren't they?
Well, yeah, and, the trouble is they've had a huge change of personnel. I mean, whereas we used to have one contact, they seem to have a number of people now, and I'm not quite sure who's responsible for this because they've got individual responsibilities, for various things. And the Knoll came under one person, but I have no idea who that is now. So I'm relying on going through their administrative department, West of Superman, which is pretty well worth the time. So I have to find some other way of contacting them. Maybe a letter is the answer. Maybe a letter is the only way.
Certainly you can wait for health and safety aspect, because it is somewhere where lots of people are walking, and it's not going to be long for some of these themselves.
Further down, breaking back into the field to get around the steps as well. So we get a complaint from the landowner.
Yeah, because actually, it goes back to what we were saying earlier on about the beacons for the, I just know it's going to be a nightmare because they're so bureaucratic as an organisation. That you kind of give up in the end because they're just too difficult. They're worse than BT, and that's saying something. It really is. So, I would try and write them a letter and emphasise the health and safety there. And on the other matters that you raised, I'll ask Colin about what we can do about talking to Nichols, and he can maybe come up with some suggestions.
Have you included that proposal that we've been talking about for years?
Another item.
It's terrible there. Somebody's put sandstones down, but the whole
We don't really have a regular contract for this kind of work. We've got various people that we can talk to. There's Michael Watts and there's a couple of others. But Nichols might be our saviour in that department. He may be just the man who's looking for it. Because all these are jobs which are, by their standards, relatively small jobs. But it's just a question of focusing, getting them to focus on it.
If we can offer one contractor a number of
Exactly.
times,
And do all of it. And so obviously we're aware of it, and we just need to try and do something about it.
It gets embarrassing when you speak to the same person who's asking the same question after a couple of years.
person. Have you been out with Colin at all? And that, I mean, that's another possibility for you to meet up with Colin
Yes.
and with Nicholas, perhaps, three